Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bunbun. This is our Presumed Innocent Episode 6 reaction and review. The trial has started.
Yep.
For me, this is the part of the show that I was most excited to see because I love a good courtroom drama. I also love a good courtroom drama that feels as ridiculous and over the top as humanly possible. There is no way this show could get more insane than having Raymond just flat out collapsing right in the middle of it. That's the big cliffhanger, I guess, moving into the final episode.
It absolutely is. I mean, he's extremely stressed out
Yeah,
with what's going on. He's defending Rusty, who may have actually done this. I mean, it's pretty overwhelming. We had seen throughout the season already that Raymond had been having problems with this, so I don't think it's a big shock to you guys or to us
yeah.
that this ended up happening, but in the courtroom like that and just drop on the floor? Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Who out there thinks that he's actually dead? Leave it in the comments for us. What do you think? Dead?
No,
Alive?
I don't think he's dead.
I think dead.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think dead, and I think Rusty then is going to represent himself.
Oh my, okay. I kind of
He's like, definite sane person Rusty is going to stand up and be like, I'm just going to do it myself.
Rusty is the okay, I there is so much I can say about Rusty that it's hard to even know where to start. He is so incredibly unlikable. He's so
Oh my God.
incredibly over the top. He does not seem to. Is there a single thing that Rusty has done right through the entirety of this season? That's a very that's it's something I'm clearly still wrestling with.
Yeah, he's so unlikable. He hasn't really done anything right in this whole thing, and he
Yeah.
just continues to make more and more and more mistakes, but he's so sure of himself
Yeah.
that I could see that, let's say Raymond is dead or Raymond is unable to continue on, that he's going to be like, I just represent myself, let's go.
Kind of want to see it. I'm gonna put that
Yeah.
out there because I'm not invested in Rusty Savage. If he goes away for this, he goes away with this. I don't know if he's actually the person who did this or not. We'll talk a lot more about that though. We'll go through some suspects, where
Mhm.
things lie after the start of this trial. But before we do, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We don't want you
Yeah.
guys to miss any of our other presumed innocent coverage here, and also smash that like button. That helps us very, very much.
And another way to help support us is to join our Patreon. We'll have a link for you below. It's a great way to help support the channel and help support us to
Mhm.
continue to make videos for you guys. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined our Patreon.
Okay, let's just start with another revisiting of the classic question of who really killed Carolyn.
Yeah, I mean, there are spoilers, of course, out there for the book and the movie, and it was the same person. So if you don't know those spoilers, just like this for just a second.
Mhm.
But I mean, it still feels obvious for the show that it's Barbara. It's always the spouse. I mean, on all these shows and in life, everybody always looks at the spouse or the partner first. And with this being an affair and an affair that went on for so long and so deeply, there's love involved, there's pregnancy involved.
Yeah,
How has not one person looked at Barbara? And my only thinking of why no one has looked at Barbara is she didn't do it and Tommy did it. And if Tommy is the person, if they're going to make a switch from the original property, and they've said that maybe they're doing that,
yeah.
Tommy wouldn't look at anybody else. Nico has even said, have you looked at other people? Liam could be somebody. No, no, it's not him. It's Rusty. It feels very purposeful that whoever has done this, whether it's Rusty or Barbara or whoever, Tommy, that they want Rusty to go away for this. And if that's the case, it's really set up around that Rusty did this and he's being framed. Who has that motivation? It is Tommy. He does have that motivation and he has the means to do it. He also has access to those bunny files and would have been able to stage it this way. We heard about everything in court about Carolyn and the creepiness that was going
Yeah.
on there. And he just hates Rusty. If he's got blinders on like this and he hates Rusty and he wants it to be Rusty and he knows he's the killer, he's not going to look at Barbara or anybody else.
No, I think that out of all the possibilities out there, Tommy being the person responsible is the most interesting, just because it would lead to this scene where Rusty tries to figure it out over the course of the trial, and then there's this
Yes, or
real
in court as it's unraveling.
I want a lawyer versus lawyer confrontation to happen that is just like big and dramatic and crazy like that. Because even while just watching this episode, there are just some specific things that come out of this
Mhm.
that are really, really fascinating, especially if we view this as Tommy as the possible killer. So we'll start here with the testimony of what's going on with the medical examiner and what's
Medical
which was
examiner.
just a real fantastic testimony here. And yeah, sure, it showed a lot of bad stuff when it comes to Rusty, but it also exposed a lot of bad stuff when it comes to Tommy as well. So, Tommy, congratulations. You may have won a certain part of the trial, but at what cost? Because you've also basically have set yourself up here that you're very, very much compromised as somebody to be a prosecutor here. You did not like Rusty. It is clear you did not like Rusty. Everybody knows that you did not like Rusty. And beyond all that, it's also very apparent that Carolyn did not like you either.
Yeah, I'm very curious if Rusty or Raymond, whoever ends up representing him, decides to actually dig into why Carolyn didn't want to be around Tommy, why she filed this HR complaint against him, and why she specifically said that she does not want to be in a room with him. She does not want to be alone with him. She does not want to work with him.
Yeah.
What is it that he did that made her at that point? Because if it was something, say, as simple as like maybe he made a pass at her, that's not really something that she's going to be like, oh, I can't even work with him. Like it would have to be something pretty big. Because if he's just like, yeah, I made a pass at her, she was like, I'm not interested. Cool. And they moved on, it would be okay. But like, it has to be something a lot darker for me at this point to think that she would make a complaint, get this guy away from me. I cannot be alone with him.
It's just, I also do have a beef here with Mr. Raymond, and I'm not trying to be mean to you because you may be dead, but at the same time, you really botched this. Like the moment that it is abundantly clear that there is some sort of not great history between Tommy and the deceased, I would have hit that theme again, and I would have been way more aggressive with that towards this jury. Like at the very least, can you find a way to get this to be a mistrial? Can you find a way to
Yeah.
get it to where this entire thing just becomes a complete mess that cannot be done, and then you find some sort of way to move forward? It's even been said on this show, Raymond does not necessarily need to prove that somebody else did this. He just needs to make a very clear argument that Rusty did not do this. And if you can make this situation as confusing as possible, that may be as close to mission accomplished as you're going to get.
Yeah, if he can just pull Tommy apart in front of the jury, I mean, there's a bunch of circumstantial evidence, anyways, like the DNA under the fingernails. That's like, okay, maybe she didn't scratch him. It was so little that she could have just, put her hand on his face or ran her fingers down his neck lightly. It's not any sort of smoking gun at this point. But if Carolyn had a problem with Tommy, and it's very clear that Tommy has a problem with Rusty, I think that Raymond should have absolutely just been like beating that drum
Yes.
and been like, this is personal. This is not about Rusty being a killer. This is Tommy doesn't like Rusty. And here's all the reasons why. They didn't even look into anybody else. Like it's just Rusty or nobody. And, let's go from there.
Okay, let's go to exhibit number 2 as to why things are looking pretty bad here for Tommy. This is by the way my favorite part of the entire episode. Michael ends up being on the stand close to the end of this, and he delivers this absolutely amazing testimony, including, I wanted to look in the eyes of the man who killed my mother. And he just like keeps saying this. The judge is trying to calm him down, but entertainment value aside from all of this, I think it's very, very interesting that you see Michael making all these assumptions, sort of connecting the dots that, oh, it's Rusty that Carolyn didn't want to be around based on some of the things that she said, but she never said it was Rusty. And that is what makes beyond what I think Michael is intending to do while he's up on the stand, which is he thinks apparently he is both the judge and the jury. I think he's actually casting a lot of doubt here because of everything the medical examiner already said, that it feels like Tommy could have easily been this person. And because Michael is just this kid who's just trying to wrestle with everything that's going on, he's not thinking that nuanced.
Yeah, I think that Tommy gassed Michael up to get on the stand and be like, "Yeah, Rusty did this. I
Yeah.
want to look my, the killer of my mom in his eyes, and yeah, there was someone at her work that was a problem." I think Tommy probably didn't think that that part was going to come up, and I think he thought that if it did, because it was sent to HR, that it wouldn't actually come out. That's no one was going to actually just say, actually, it wasn't Rusty at all that she complained about. It was Tommy.
This is possibly an L for Tommy in the sense of why are you putting an emotional young person who is grieving the loss of his
I
mother up
know.
on the stand in this sort of situation if he's clearly emotional enough that he's going to start basically making direct accusations in the middle of the trial? It's going to be hard to. I don't know. If you're the jury, are you going to take everything he says into account because he's clearly so worked up? He's not going to be
Yeah.
thinking logically.
Well, the other thing that's very weird about Carolyn's death is that it seems like the first part of it was like this crime of passion, but at the second part of it, there's no DNA anywhere else. Like there's nothing on the ropes, there's nothing else anywhere else. So it's kind of like whoever did this definitely had some sort of premeditation. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Or afterwards, they were like, okay, how am I going to deal with this? It's just very weird that it's kind of like this happened in the heat of the moment, but also we're going to very specifically set this up to look like Bunny. We're going to wipe all the DNA away. It's like there's a lot of thought that went into this, and that makes it a very small suspect pool.
Yeah, that is admittedly the biggest problem that I have with, the tinfoil hat theory I've been rocking as of late, which is that Kyle ended up doing this. And I think I just want Kyle.
I think he could have done it.
I just wonder if is he gonna be capable of being able to think a lot of this through and prepare and
Yes, he's a lawyer's son.
yeah, but he's just also still young. And I think it's just I have a hard time reconciling in my head the kid who's throwing his bicycle in the garbage
Okay,
and
that's
then
true.
also having this level of preparedness. I do think though it would be interesting if it's Kyle. I just think it would be an interesting term from the source material for starters, but also another way to sort of hit home the same theme that the original work did just by spinning it in a slightly different way where you are still seeing the killer be somebody who is personally affected by everything that Rusty did,
Mhm.
just in a very different sort of way. Because Kyle can look at him as, okay, you tore our family apart, and for what reason? And you lie, you continue to lie, you do all these sort of things that are just causing us all this destruction. But if Kyle is somehow responsible for it, he's a pretty good liar for being a kid at this age. He's been able to keep everything mostly on lock here, which if you're the killer, no matter who you are, you kind of have to be good at it at this point.
Well, that's why I was really glad that the daughter brought up the idea that I think a lot of us have been thinking, which is, did Rusty just do this?
Mhm.
And that maybe he has he's just disassociating himself away from what he did. We've seen that, he's punching people, he's acting out, he's lashing out, he doesn't remember everything. We're seeing little flashes of things come back in his mind. Could he have just done this and then pushed it out of his mind? And I think that that could be a twist that could come out. He also knows about the Bunny murder,
Mhm.
so he absolutely could have ended up doing this.
Yeah, wouldn't it be an interesting twist if he actually did do this, but they still weren't able to find him guilty? And then
Yes.
I don't know how satisfying that would be for a lot of people because there wouldn't be an actual killer and it would just remain unsolved. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility here because Tommy is doing such a terrible job of running this trial that to get this jury to convict, it's going to be hard. It's going to take some sort of real steadfast witnesses who are going to go up there and think logically and not emotionally and also not make him look bad at the same time.
Okay, let's talk about probable killer Barbara here.
Oh boy.
Okay, so
All right.
they've asked a lot of Barbara, and Barbara's already gone through a lot with Rusty.
Yes.
Rusty has lied to her over and over and over again, being like, oh yeah, it was a short affair. It was like a week, it was over. Okay, then maybe it was actually a couple months. Okay, maybe it was a couple months and I broke up with her and then I got back together with her. And then, I got her pregnant. It's just on and on and on and on. Like for Barbara to be told, hey, we really need you to like, play up that you're the dutiful wife. Her putting her foot down
Yeah.
saying, no, I'm not going to do this. She's taking it a lot better than I would. I'd set somebody on fire if they did all this to me. I mean, it's so bad, everything that he's been doing to her. To even ask her to do something like that is just ridiculous. So good for her for standing up for herself and just saying, no, like I'm already showing up to the trial. That shows that I'm clearly still dedicated. I'm not going to,
Yeah.
put my arm around him or let him shield me or what. Like, stop it. Like, it's so not genuine.
Yeah, this is a really interesting episode for Barbara in general because I
Yep.
think she's trying to realistically portray things towards the jury in the right way because she obviously still has some element of doubt here, unless she's the killer, and then in which case she knows. But if she's not the
Mhm.
killer, I think she wants to present herself in a way where she's hurt by everything that happened regardless.
Yep.
But if Rusty does get convicted and does go away with this, and it turns out he is the killer, I don't think she wants to publicly look like she's up there supporting a killer who also
Right.
had this extensive affair. Like, it's a really horrible position to be in. And then on top of all of this, all right, it's time to start the latest edition of Why Rusty Savage Sucks,
Oh,
volume
yeah.
800,
All right.
where she admits to, what happened with Clifton, which, not great. She was in a very difficult position. She hasn't been feeling any sort of emotional connection. I'm not surprised that she started to look for it
No.
elsewhere, but Rusty's reaction to this is so unbelievably hypocritical. It is so obnoxious. It makes me just want to see Rusty shipped away somewhere where I never have to look at him again, regardless of whether or not he did this. Because Rusty, you had a months-long affair, and you are now treating Barbara like she has committed the greatest sin in the history of mankind. You're losing your mind. You're yelling at her. You're acting a fool. You did all of this, Rusty. If you had actually been a good person and a good husband, I don't believe for a second that any of this would have happened with Barbara.
No, I mean, her coming clean about it, I was like, what's the motivation? Is she trying to just unburden herself? Or is she the person that killed Carolyn and she's trying to help unravel Rusty more so that he will look more like he did it and will end up going to jail? But his reaction, yeah, like you had a months long affair, you fell in love, you started like basically stalking Carolyn, you got her pregnant, you've on and on and on. Barbara kissed a guy. Like
Yeah.
after you did all this, you are out of your mind to start yelling at her like that. He grabbed her. I mean, like, it's not great. I'm thinking, tinfoil hat, that
Yeah, yeah.
if Barbara did this, she said this to help continue to unravel him.
I think it's a good theory. It's a way that if she did this, she's doing a good job of covering it up. She has to do a good job of continuing to cover it up because she knows that one slip up could end up getting her in a bad position. And yes, Rusty is emotional. Rusty is a terrible person, but Rusty also is a lawyer. Rusty is smart enough that he can figure out ways to wiggle out of this situation. If she has to sort of needle him further to go down this road, then, ultimately, so be it. I think what makes this show so interesting is that ultimately there's not a lot of likable people on here, especially if Barbara is a killer. And with all of that in mind, the question then is, okay, what are we as viewers getting out of this? Like, what's our takeaway from it? And to me, it's just a lot about the journey. It's a lot about the fun of sort of looking at the different suspects and seeing why they could have done things, but then also how they could have done things and
Mhm.
whether or not there's any emotional justification for what's going on here. And for having that be Barbara at the center of it, getting to unpack her motives and what she's done over the next couple episodes, that could be really fascinating.
Well, that's the thing is, yeah, there's a lot of unlikable people on the show, but there's a question for you guys is if Barbara's the killer, is she justified in it? And is she unlikable? Like, put yourself in her shoes. If this was happening to you, all the things that Rusty has done all the way till the end of this, where he's never really ended this affair. Carolyn ended this affair and she was pregnant. Like it's gotten to such an crazy level. Is she justifying what she did? Let us know in the comments. Is she unlikable for what she did? Let us know in the comments.
I think it's going to be an interesting debate. And I think, honestly, some of the answers to that are going to be based on how
Complicated.
Yeah, it's going to be based on how the reveal is actually handled. And if this is not the real Barbara, can we see every aspect of Barbara whenever this reveal happens? And I hope that no matter who the killer is, whether it's Barbara, Rusty, Tommy, Kyle, I don't know, Joe off the street, I think we need a little bit of time to kind of understand why it happened. I don't want this to be final 5 minutes of the finale. Oh, here's the killer. Goodbye. We'll see you never, because this is being billed as a limited series.
Yeah, the motivation has to be really, really deep.
Yeah.
For what happened to Carolyn and for her to actually be tied up like a bunny and all that. There's really a small handful of people that would have that deep of a motivation. That's why I think one of the big key pieces of evidence that needs to still be brought out, and it may never be brought out, is what did Tommy do to Carolyn to make her go to HR and be like, I can't even be in a room with him? Like, that's pretty serious if you're in a work environment. So what is it that he did?
Raymond, if you are not dead, you need to find a way to get somebody on this, investigating this, getting some answers. I will just say, this show is lit. I am not saying it is the greatest show of all time. It is ridiculous. It is over the top. It is occasionally silly, and I laugh at things that I'm not supposed to laugh at, but I just find it endlessly entertaining. This is the perfect show to have on at this time of year.
No, it's really fun. I'm going to say, though, that I will have a beef with the creative team behind the show. If they decided that they were going to come out, what was it, last week or whatever, and be like, yo, we may have a different killer. Maybe we might. And then it's still just Barbara. Like, don't do that. Like, it still would have been such a good show, like really enjoyable show, if it's still Barbara. Like, she has a great motivation for this. The performances are a lot of fun. Like, there's a lot going on in this show. It doesn't matter if you know what the ending is or not, or you know who did it. It's the journey with a lot of these whodunits. It's not always whodunit.
Yeah, it's true. And I like to think that there are even a lot of people out there who don't know anything about the original, and maybe they're still getting some of that aspect of it too. Like, I love a good whodunit as much as the next person. And even if they said nothing, I would still be on here trying to convince myself that it's people other than Barbara. And you know why that is? It's because I'm a crazy person.
It's because it's so obviously Barbara.
I want to see different possibilities, and I love playing out these scenarios. And that to me is the fun of a show like this. It is a bummer that we're already pretty close to the end, but yeah. We'll see where things go from here on out. But that's what we got about Presumed Innocent episode 6. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any other coverage that's coming your way. Also, join our Patreon. It is a fantastic way to support us further. We really do appreciate that so much if you haven't. And we will see you here next time.